Have you seen this? There's been reporting that the government is now considering a national state of disaster as a result of the load shedding crisis. And it's been reported on by News 24, it's been reported on by Business Day. And once it starts being covered by a variety of publications that are favorable to the president and favorable to the current administration, you kind of know that that's the direction that they want to go in. Now, the last time we had a national state of disaster was under the COVID pandemic, and you may have certain feelings about that, but we'll explore them just now. So, what are the benefits of a national state of disaster? What does it actually allow the government to do? Number one, you can increase spending, and number two, you can actually fast track particular regulation. So, with that in consideration, think about whether or not this will work for dealing with the Eskom problem. A critical part of that consideration relates to what is the strategy that that command council, which will be running the national state of disaster, would actually adopt. So if they are going to just say, we're going to accelerate IPPs, we're going to accelerate spending around IPPs, will that actually lead to more power being added to the grid, considering that solar and wind are not necessarily always reliable and available and don't necessarily have long-term storage options. You can't store the sunlight, you need to have battery technology as well, which is complementary. So what the government has been pushing a lot of is the renewable energy independent power producer procurement program, which is the REIPPPPPP that you've seen them talking about a lot of times. But if that's all that they're going to do, is it going to actually solve the generation problem? Because coal is still the most abundant resource that South Africa has, and one of the ways that you can actually make sure you have increased energy availability. So that's number one, just on the problem solution. Is there a synergy between the problem and solution, and does the solution solve the problem? So that's number one. Number two is a lot of looting happened during the pandemic. A lot of looting happened. Everyone saw it, whether it was digital vibes, whether it was scandals with school fumigation, where 400 million rands was spent. We saw those, ambulance scooters being rolled out in the Eastern Cape. There was a lot of looting around masks, PPE. We saw Hamilton dropping 7 cars in one day and all of that. That was COVID looting under the pandemic and under the pandemic regulations where they were fast tracking spending. So I think a legitimate concern that many people should raise is whether or not this will be another round of money grabbing for people who are politically connected and able to get their tenders approved, etc. The EFF has said that they don't support this particular policy, but the Democratic Alliance have said that they support it as a ring-fenced state of national disaster, just not a general national disaster, but one specific around the energy cluster. So that's where the different political parties stand. The other question that I think is worth asking and exploring is this a gimmick? Because Eskom has had war rooms. Eskom has had so many different discourse platforms where people come and talk and are supposed to finally solve the problems of Eskom. President Ramaphosa promised in 2015 that the load shedding would be a thing of the past. We're in 2023 now. So is this just another time buying exercise? Because there's a recognition by the ANC that if they continue to have this massive level of load shedding, they're definitely going to do very poorly in the next election. What do you think? Where do you stand on the idea of a national state of disaster for the load shedding crisis?